Alleluia, 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 Alleluia. Blessed are you, O Virgin Mary. Without dying, you won the martyr's crown beneath the cross of the Lord. Alleluia, Alleluia. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus' father and mother were amazed at what was said about him, and Simeon blessed them and said to Mary his mother, "Behold, this child is destined for the fall and rise of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be contradicted. And you yourself a sword will pierce, so that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed." The Gospel of the Lord. Today is the feast of Our Lady of Sorrows, right? So we do have a parish in our diocese up in Wheatfield called Our Lady of Sorrows. I always thought it'd be interesting to be a member of Our Lady of Sorrows, or to be the person on social media in charge of Facebook or any of those things, right? Come and share the joy at Our Lady of Sorrows Parish, right? And I'm interesting, but we can pray for them today on their great feast day. Something that is a great thing to think about on Our Lady of Sorrows, and something that is definitely new to my understanding, and I think new to a lot of people's understandings. Right? We've talked in the past about how our devotions to Mary, right? So many non-Catholic Christians, they think our devotions to Mary are a little bit intense, a little bit extreme. A lot of people think they're uncomfortable with them, right? And it's important for us to recognize as Catholics that so many of our devotions to Mary, right, they're not just rooted in the church, they're actually rooted in the scriptures, right, and in fact in the Old Testament and in ancient Judaism, right? This has been brought to light here in the United States by a scholar named Scott Hahn and some of his other disciples, right? And so we know that, for example, in the Old Testament, right, Eve was born sinless, right? So likewise in the church we believe that the new Eve, Mary, right, is immaculately conceived. Just as the mother of the king in the Old Testament, right, was a great intercessor for the people, right? So likewise in the New Testament, the mother of Jesus, right, is this great intercessor. Now there's a really good book written by a scholar named Dr. Brant Petrie, and as far as I know, I really don't think any other Catholics have ever actually pointed this out other than him, so he really deserves a lot of the credit. But he wrote a book a couple of years ago, and one of the most exciting parts about it was he talked about the scriptural roots of Our Lady of Sorrows. Right? That Our Lady of Sorrows, the way that we give devotion to Mary in this way, is not simply something that the church made up, but again is rooted in the scriptures and in ancient Judaism. The reality is that in the Old Testament, there was a sort of woman of sorrows. Right? Her name was Rachel. Right? Rachel, you recall, was one of the wives of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. So in some ways, Jacob was considered the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, and Rachel was considered like the matriarch of the 12 tribes. Rachel was also known for her suffering because she died giving birth to her youngest son, Benjamin. And so she was recalled as this woman of sorrows in that way. But she was also seen as a sort of intercessor for the people. For example, in the book of Jeremiah, when the people were being carried off into exile, Jeremiah said that there was a voice heard crying out, right, from Bethlehem, which is where Rachel was buried. And he said that Rachel was weeping for her children, which is obviously a very strange thing to say because Rachel had been dead for centuries. So how is it possible that she was weeping for her descendants? Right, the same thing happens in the Gospel of Matthew when it's describing the slaughter of the holy innocents. Again, this phrase is mentioned, that in Bethlehem, her voice is heard crying out, right? Rachel, weeping for her children. So here it was nearly 1,500 years after she had been dead, and here she was again weeping for her descendants, these poor innocent children who were slaughtered by King Herod. Even in modern day Bethlehem, if you go there, right, it is still a popular pilgrimage destination for people to go and pray at the tomb of Rachel. right? And when we say that, it's not just Christians. It is literally Jewish people going and recognizing her as a sort of matriarch of the people. And so asking for her intercession, even though she has long been since dead, right? So isn't that kind of interesting? How we as Catholics, we pay devotion to this woman who we consider our mother, who we consider like the mother of the kingdom and the mother of the church. This woman who gave birth to Christ and also was with him in his suffering at the cross. And at the suffering of the cross, she was given another son, right? John the Evangelist. And she is this woman of sorrows who still intercedes for us, even though she has been dead for a long time. It's because now she is in heaven, right? And she is our mother interceding for us. So really cool things about this Feast of Our Lady of Sorrows, not just being something the church made up, but something that is actually rooted in the scriptures and indeed in ancient Judaism.